We all know Rueben Hurricane Bain has been playing really, really well for Miami, but the numbers tell you just how well.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Victory Monday. I'm Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Still buzzing about Miami's 28-20 double overtime win against Clemson. Even without Tyler Van Dyke, Emory Williams did an awesome job, but the true freshman who really stole the show, as we're going to be talking about on this episode, was Rueben Hurricane Bain. Our good friend and recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, is with us. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm still kind of buzzing about the weekend, but I was trying to think, man. When was the last time you saw a true freshman step in midweek, more or less, and not only win a game against a team with that defense? I don't know if I've seen that in my life.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And guys, every time Brian joins us, he's brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. And we will circle back to Emory Williams, who did an awesome job and helped Miami improve to 5-2 on the year. But a couple thoughts here on Rueben Bain, Miami's freshman defensive lineman. Take a look at some of the numbers. Rueben Bain was just named to the Pro Football Focus College Team of the Week, meaning he was graded as one of the top 22 players in all of Week 8 and a top 2 edge rusher in America. Brian, his Pro Football Focus grade from this past Saturday, where he got 2 sacks, had 10 quarterback pressures, and a team-high 8 tackles in the game. Bain led Miami with an elite 90.9 PFF grade. It's out of 100, obviously. You know, when you're anywhere over 90 is completely elite. He played 62 snaps in the game, had a 90.9 grade. And on the season, Brian, Bain, who has played more snaps than any other defensive lineman on Miami, he's got an 89.4 grade on the season. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the country, not just freshmen, anyone.
The only concern I have is how can he keep this up? Like, we have expectations for him now that are like, let's just send him to the NFL. No, but right. He's unreal, man. He's unreal. I don't remember a freshman being this consistent as a true freshman, Miami or otherwise. And you can make an argument Miami has as good a D-line history as any school in the country. I don't remember something like this because he plays the run just as well as he does the pass because he's so strong. He can basically two-gap a guy if he wants. And I did that article on All Hurricanes, that video, he just lifted the offensive lineman. I mean, I've seen a few guys do that, but they're guys like Reggie White.
Yeah.
You know, a freshman in college, like Reggie White's as good as it gets, but a freshman in college against Clemson, he literally with one arm moved a guy in the air out of his way. That's video game stuff. He is unbelievable, man.
I mean, what's and Miami's defensive line in general, Brian, so impressive, that defensive front. Leonard Taylor was also excellent in the game. He got overshadowed by Bain, but Taylor was making a home in the backfield as well, the offensive backfield. And Miami only allowed about 1 yard per carry to Clemson's running backs, which, I mean, Maffa and Shipley, one of the better combos you'll find in the country.
4 yards, third, fourth quarter, and I believe the overtime. Like in that, not now in college, to be fair, sacks count.
Yeah.
But even if they didn't, they were like 50 yards or less. I mean, it was
Clemson
is a downhill team.
Shipley had 44 yards. Maffa had 14.
Those are both guys that will play in the NFL in some capacity. I think Shipley will end up being a starter in the NFL because he's so versatile. Maffa's pretty good too. They just ate him alive. I mean, Clemson's front is not their best attribute, but to completely dominate them the way they did, and think about it, the 2 touchdowns Clemson got, the Jake Brenningstool kid, he's legit, by the way. Both those balls, their coverage was phenomenal, and they had to throw it in because Clemson couldn't run the ball like they really wanted to. Hats off to Florida State's front. They were really, really good. Or Miami, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And I got to ask you this, since you're our recruiting expert, Brian Smith is with us. And I know it's ironic because, as we're going to talk about, Miami just lost a commitment from another Miami Central defensive lineman, which is interesting because I look at Rueben Bain, and shouldn't he be like the best possible billboard for local players staying at the crib? And he talked about this after the game. This guy, he's a role model to so many in the community.
Sure.
Hometown hero at Miami Central. He's now, I think, reaping the benefits of becoming a South Florida icon. That's what he's becoming now. And he said after the game that staying home at Miami was the best decision he's made in his 19 years. So he's loving the fact that his nickname was already Hurricane for different reasons, because he's that unstoppable force. But I think Rueben Bain gives a great advertisement for if you're a great player in South Florida, staying home has its perks.
Could you think of somebody better to use as their billboard person? I mean, plays at Central, was a star. We all knew it when he was like a sophomore. He was kind of next up. And then as a junior, he gets 29 sacks. As a senior, gets 29 sacks, comes in, immediately impacts Miami. And they're really, think about this. If the Canes had not assigned him and he goes to Alabama, whatever it is, because he could have went to a gazillion places. Jafari Harvey has had a pretty good year, but they've had injuries up front across the board, D tackle, D end, etc. Where would Miami's defensive front be without Bain? It'd still be good, but I mean, they wouldn't have beat Clemson. And they might have had other problems too. It's amazing that he's leading the team in snaps along the D line.
Yeah.
There's no way in the world you could have projected that. I thought that he would be a very key role player because they've got depth at defensive end. Then injuries happened, and then he just got really, really good being a college player, not a high school player. You just don't see that as a freshman, man. Really, really proud of that young man. So I think he's as good an example on what Cristobal and all these guys can do with recruiting Dade and Broward, et cetera. Absolutely. He is the billboard choice.
I love this on a Victory Monday, and our good pal Brian Smith is with us. He's my colleague at allhurricanes.com. He's the recruiting expert here on the Locked On Network. We got to talk about the quarterbacks when we come back, because Mario Cristobal this morning gave some insight on when we're going to see Tyler Van Dyke again. I do want to recap the performance with Brian of Emory Williams, because you guys will remember we've got some egg on our faces today, because we did that breaking news episode on Saturday when we found out that Emory was likely to start, and both Brian and I didn't think that was going to go so well for him going up against the top defense in the ACC in his first career start. Very happy to be wrong about that one. So you know what you want to do is, we are only getting started. You want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. Time now for our game changer of the week. Who else but Rueben Bain? I know this entire episode has just been a Rueben Bain love fest, but he was a game changer this past week. When you talk about those 2 sacks, the forced fumble, the 10 quarterback hurries, the team lead in tackles that came with that. And much like Rueben Bain, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. These brews are great tasting and award-winning, and beat full-strength beers in global competitions. Athletic Brewing brews over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, golden sours, and so much more. No hangovers ever, because they are fit for all times. They're the fastest growing non-alcoholic brewery in the U.S., so it's time to get on board, guys. You can visit Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews. You can buy them at a store near you, or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's Locked On at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. Alex Donno and Brian Smith with you. Guys, if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, sign up for Locked On Canes Insiders. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours. Click the link in the show description below. Try it for free for 14 days. And then if you like it, opt in, $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value on there. All right, so Brian, first things first, I was listening to Mario Cristobal this morning on the Joe Rose Show, AM 560 Sports in Miami. And Rose, he asked Mario Cristobal, do you expect Tyler Van Dyke to have a chance to play this week against Virginia? Cristobal said, quote, yeah, we do. last week really caught us off guard. He said it really did. You saw him. He walked off the field after North Carolina and was fine. There was nothing really looming. That one caught us off guard. He was really close to being able to go against Clemson. So, yeah, we feel really good about next week. So that's by no means is that a guarantee that Van Dyke plays this week, but there seems to be a good chance, Brian. At the same time, it's good to know that Miami is capable of stepping up, rallying around a freshman quarterback, and that freshman quarterback is poised enough to get a dub against a team like Clemson. So I don't know if Tyler Van Dyke is even going to be needed this week. So do not rush back unless you're absolutely ready to play.
That's something I was curious about. And I know Mario is not going to go into a lot of detail, and he shouldn't.
Yeah.
How do we know that Emory, based on, and we'll get into a little more detail here in a second, why not at least entertain the idea and give him some of the I don't know how they're going to do the distribution through the week. There's a lot of questions they got to answer. Maybe he ends up playing some. I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, you always want your starter, and I get that. But what's the injury, the severity? How long does it take? We just don't have the answers to that. So I'm just throwing it out there based on what I saw, especially like that fourth quarter. They're down 10. He looked pretty poised to me. So you mentioned egg on the face. We both thought that he was going to be a deer in headlights.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to get smoked.
Yeah. And
I should have. There wasn't a person in America with sanity other than maybe his parents that were going to, they're a little biased, but it's just a very bad combination. Now, to that point, I want to give a special shout out here. The offensive line for the Canes, I believe, no sacks.
No sacks. You're right. Yeah.
With a freshman. Now, here's the key to that. Freshmen hold on to the ball longer. They're not as good at making checks up front. And it's not like Clemson doesn't have dudes. They flat out have dudes. No sacks. That was arguably the most important thing. And I know O-linemen don't get a ton of credit. Just wanted to give them a shout out. But Emory made the clutch throws when he had to. Third downs, over the middle, the pass that he threw to Colby. All that was great, man. It's hats off to him. So if for whatever reason Tyler can't play, there's physical evidence now. I have seen it. Emory Williams pretty darn good.
A couple other things I wanted to point out. I want to build on what you were saying about the offensive line. We should be giving them more credit because not only did they surrender 0 sacks, which is huge against a defense like that, but opening up holes for 211 yards on the ground against a team that had, I believe, the top rushing defense in the ACC heading into that game. I mean, yeah, I think the most rushing yards Clemson had surrendered was 102, 104 team yards. They held Florida State to 22 rushing yards.
I was going to look, Florida State's pretty good. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And then another one, Brian, I wanted to give credit because when I was doing my recap episode, there was so much to talk about. I didn't hit on everybody that I should have hit on, but the hustle play by Jacoby George to save that opening touchdown, right? Because we'd be talking about that play even more because Rashard Smith, he fumbles right around the goal line on that 80-yard run, live ball in the end zone. Jacoby George had followed him the entire way. Unbelievable hustle play to get on that football and secure the touchdown. That could have gone very, very badly had number 3 not been there.
I'm trying to think of a better way for somebody to do a PSA for a young kid. This is why you, in whatever sport you want. Yeah. Basketball, kid misses the layup. Everybody just, he's got an easy layup. How many times have we seen that go awry? Same thing in football. He's just switching his hands, and the Clemson guy, hey, it happens. Great play by the Clemson player, but I'm thinking, oh my God, immediately, because I'm in media, Alex and I are going to be talking about this for all the wrong reasons, and they get out of the pile. Yeah. We would have been. Yeah. We would have talked about that on Sunday.
Yeah.
We get out of, look, Miami recovered. I'm sure Brashard's a little bit happier than everybody else about how that turned out, because I'm sure, it sucks for him that he didn't get the touchdown because he was shot out of a cannon. And the Clemson guy hustled too. It was just a great all-around play. But there's George making that play happen. Great for him. And without it, Miami probably does not win the football game.
Yeah. And another one who had a really good game that I didn't give enough credit to was Daryl Porter in coverage. I talked about the safeties and I talked about Jaden Davis yesterday because I was really impressed because they tried to pick on Jaden Davis the same way that North Carolina did, but He hung tough. He broke up the big passes he needed to, but Daryl Porter was also awesome in coverage. They don't throw in his direction too often. I think that's for a reason. And then another thing, as Brian Smith is with us here on Locked On Canes, had Miami not won that game, a lot more people would be, talking about Cristobal clock management in the fourth quarter. I got to defend that, though, a little bit. I did talk about it a little bit yesterday. I got a lot of thoughts from the listeners because, okay, Miami, they get the football with about a minute and a half in regulation, and they go very conservative, not a lot of urgency, no huddle or anything. They run the football. They essentially, the way people talk about it, they kind of surrendered to go to overtime. A couple different things you have to think about, though, in that spot. Again, he had made some plays, no question, but you have a true freshman quarterback. Miami's offense had been slow and methodical all game because, Brian, I don't think Emory Williams was comfortable enough to run a 2-minute drill, hurry up. And also, Mario Cristobal pointed this out this morning. Miami lost early in that drive. They lost Don Chaney. Hopefully he's okay, but he got banged up and he left the game. So not having him available for the next handful of plays, that really, really affects your pass protection because that – now, for as good, listen, A.J. Allen made some big plays as a runner in that game. They don't trust him in pass pro the way that they trust Don Chaney in pass protection. So You're talking about putting your freshman quarterback needing to run a hurry-up offense that he's probably not comfortable enough to do without your best pass-protecting running back. A lot of bad things can happen if you throw the ball down the field in that spot. So I can totally live with Miami accepting overtime, and it helps that they ultimately won in the double OT.
The point about Chaney, because originally I'm looking at it like, what? But Chaney being out, I'm like, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
The number one reason that freshman running backs and sophomore running backs, in the case of AJ, don't play is pass protection.
Yeah.
You can't have somebody like Trotter in a one-on-one with him. You just can't. And I'm not picking on AJ. He's going to lose that battle.
Yeah.
It just is. So, and obviously he got redemption throughout the game. AJ played pretty darn well too. So he has his moments. He'll get better as a pass protector, and he's got a chance to play on Sundays one day because he's so athletic.
All right. We're talking recruiting on the other side because unfortunately Miami won a big game on Saturday. They lost a big recruiting battle on Sunday. Hurricanes lost their top recruit for the class of 2025, who now becomes 2024, but he's going to be taking his talent somewhere else. You know what you got to do, my friends? You got to keep it locked right here. What does Miami do next in defensive line recruiting? We will tell you right here on Locked On Canes. Guys, I hope you're enjoying Prize Picks. This is my favorite app. This is my favorite website during football season. Prize Picks is the most fun I've ever had, winning 25 times my money this football season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and then you place your entry. You can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Fully legal, by the way, in the state of Florida. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of stat types and players. That's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks truly is daily fantasy sports made easy. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. And by the way, later today on our YouTube channel, I will be posting the afternoon press conferences from Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, and Lance Guidry. Sure, we'll talk a lot of Rueben Bain with Lance Guidry. Spoiler alert. So we're going to have those on the YouTube channel coming up a little bit later on today. We won't be talking too much more Armondo Blount on this channel, at least not until he arrives at Florida State next year. So Armondo Blount, Brian, for the last, I think since September, mid-September, had been verbally committed to Miami. Miami Central superstar, was class of 2025. Not only has he reclassified to 2024, as we suspected he might, he flipped his commitment from Miami to Florida State. What do you make of this from the Miami side and the Florida State side? Because Miami's loss is FSU's gain here.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. This is a shot across the bow.
Yeah.
He's one of the rare players that you're going to find, like in terms of upside. I'm not saying he's going to be the exact same player, but frame, mentality, versatility. He reminds me a little bit of Bruce Smith, who is an edge guy that could play inside some. And I think that's what Armondo will be. He's 250 right now. He'll end up being 265, something like that. Bruce played a little everywhere, and I think Armondo will do that at the college and eventually the NFL level. Elite player, big gain for the Noles, big loss for the Canes.
So Miami, it's already been happening throughout this cycle, has had to, turn to maybe some plan Bs and plan Cs in defensive tackle recruiting. One player Miami has recently made an offer to, I think it happened 3 or 4 days ago, is a 3-star, 6'2", 275-pound defensive lineman out of Leesburg, Georgia. Leroy Jackson has recently received a Miami offer. How much have you seen this player? Any comp you can give us on who he reminds you of?
He's an inside power guy. I don't know him well enough yet to give a whole lot of info. What I do know is he fits that program to a T. For people that don't know, Lee County is one of the big boy programs in the state of Georgia. They have Power 5 kids every year. So this is not an exception. And that their weight room is like the Chicago Bears. Like, it's insane. So it's football there is everything. And he's used to the big time competition. So playing in the SEC, playing at Miami or the Big Ten or whatever won't be a big step up to him mentally. And he's got the frame. Like, you look at the picture of the kid, you're like, okay, yeah, he looks like a defensive tackle. The big shoulders, the big traps, he fits. Could probably play 1 tech or 3 tech. And Miami needs at least 1 more D tackle in this class because they only signed 1 last year. They got 2 for now that'll be D tackles, but he would be a nice third addition and some versatility as well.
And when you say for now, I do have to ask you about Artavius Jones, because that's another one. Florida State has been sniffing around a lot there. They just flipped Armondo Blount. I also kind of wonder, it's like at a certain point, do some of these guys have to realize there's maybe not as much playing time available at Florida State right now? So, I mean, I don't know if them flipping Armondo Blount has any effect on Artavius Jones, but he lives near Tallahassee. And is there concern there that Florida State is still trying to flip that one?
100%. He was set. I didn't check yet, but he was set to be at their game last weekend against Duke. He lives 45 minutes away from Tallahassee. Yeah, that's a concern. And Miami, there's just no way around it. That is a catastrophe if they lose him, because that is a potential NFL player too. And he's 310 pounds. You just can't teach those kind of guys in terms of size, man. You got to have that kind of, you got to have it. So that is a must get for Cristobal and the Canes.
Anybody who's kept it locked into this recruiting segment is like, what are you trying to bring me down for? Give me some good news. What, Donno? Give me some good news. Maybe there could be potential good news on this one, because one of the visitors at this Clemson game, and I would imagine any high school player who visited had a pretty good time. Miami got a visit from Georgia committed cornerback Ellis Robinson IV out of IMG Academy. Now, again, he is committed to Georgia. Miami has been interested in Ellis. They get him down for an important game day visit. How solid do you think he is to Georgia right now, Brian? Is Miami playing a game here that they could win?
I don't think he's going to make the visit if he's not interested. I mean, I was at his game Thursday. IMG played a Thursday game, so I went over and saw it. I get bored watching Ellis because other teams won't throw his way. It's horrible to scout him in a game, because why would you throw his direction? He's a phenomenal player, and I think he could start at Miami as a freshman. He's that kind of talent. It's at least possible. He would be in the rotation at the very least. And he's got Sunday ability. Long, athletic, fast, instinctive, and he's advanced technically. Playing at IMG has certainly helped him. I can't imagine Miami's wasting their time. If they knew they didn't have a chance, why bring the kid down? You're wasting your time. So I would say Miami's probably the only spot he would go if it's not Georgia. They just got to keep recruiting him. There's still a couple months till signing day. We'll see how it goes.
Good stuff here, as always, by Brian Smith. He's my colleague at allhurricanes.com. You can see him all over the Locked On Network. Follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. Brian, thank you so much for the time and insight, as always. Enjoy the rest of your week, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And thank everyone for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, the like button, subscribe to our channel. If you listen to the audio version, and you should if you don't, because you can take us with you in the car, on a jog, anywhere you go. Locked On Canes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, Google app. We'll hear from Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, Lance Guidry later today on Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.